Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching Business Morning on Channels Television. And of course, our conversation for today centers on the volatility at the foreign exchange market. We're looking at some of the issues there and perhaps how best it can be managed. And I have here with me the Director General, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Muda Yusuf. Thank you very much, Mr. Yusuf. Glad to have you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Right. Well, we've seen exactly what's happening on the foreign exchange market, all the volatility. But let's start by looking at the structure of the foreign exchange market. I mean, what do you make of it?
Now, before I go into that, let me emphasize that the challenge of devaluation and exchange rate depreciation has brought a lot of burden on the private sector. And when we manage an economy, we don't manage an economy in abstract. We manage an economy to advance productivity, to create jobs, to alleviate poverty, and improve the welfare of the people. That is the ultimate goal. So, in managing the current situation, I think it is important to bear these goals in mind. This is not the time to impose additional burden on business. This is the time to see what agencies and government can do to better position the private sector to fill some of the gaps. Because with the trend of things, it may not be possible for the government to continue to retain its workforce. There are risks or possibilities of retrenchment. And if this thing begins to happen, it is the private sector that should be there to be able to provide the cover by way of creating more jobs and things like that. This is not the time to be increasing taxes on private sector. This is not the time for agencies of government to be increasing their fees. This is not the time for the CBN to be increasing interest rates. I think I need to make this point upfront because it is very important for the managers of the economy to realize this.
Now, well, let me, okay.
Now I'm going to the, okay.
No, okay, well, just before you go into the question,
Yes.
talking about that structure,
Yeah,
I want to also react to what you have just said.
Yes.
Now, going by what the CBN governor explained when they had to devalue the Naira, they had to increase the monetary policy rate. They gave their explanation. Perhaps their hands were tied. At that point, everybody believed that there was nothing actually the CBN could have done at that point. So what would they have done, considering the volatility, the foreign exchange market, and of course we saw how the reserves have been being drawn down?
You see, I agree that there are some very real threats to some of our macroeconomic fundamentals. The exchange rates depreciation and devaluation is inevitable. Nobody is questioning that. But it is not right for the CBN, having devalued the currency and having moved so much, products away from what the official window, to at the same time now increase interest rates. It was unnecessary. Because the whole idea of all this monetary policy, okay, you want to manage liquidity and all of that. But you don't have to squeeze the private sector to the point that you create more problems for the economy. It was unnecessary to increase interest. The CRR was reviewed. The NPR was reviewed. That was uncalled for. Because at this time, the CBN, yes, you have to, safeguard the reserves and ensure some, but it was not necessary to have increased interest rates. You need to talk to the people in the business community as we speak. The following day or 2 days after, all those that had facilities with banks were already getting advice that their rates have been reviewed upwards. Yes. So you now have the twin problem of the devaluation and the depreciation, and the increase in cost of fund. And the way these things work is that you can't just walk away from your facility. You have taken a loan. You have invested it. And now the bank has increased it. What will you do? You don't have a choice. Because you can't walk away from it because you have already invested the facility. So these are things I think we should also watch out for. There should be a balance in all these things. You pursue macroeconomic stability, yes. You should also worry about productivity. You should also worry about how businesses can create jobs. There has to be a balance.
All right.
Yeah.
So let me take you back to
Yes.
question of the structure.
Yes.
I was looking at the structure of the foreign exchange market.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, as you know, we have the official market, which is the RDAS. You know, before then, we used to have the WDAS.
Yeah.
We now have the RDAS. And of course, you have this rate, which is, you know, has been now been moved to, I think, upper band of 168, 169.
Yeah.
You have the interbank, foreign exchange market. You have the banks also source for funds, and occasionally the CBN intervenes. You have the parallel market, and of course you have the bureau de change. You know, so these are the key segments of the market. And in all of these segments, there has been, you know, a lot of issues arising from the differential in their rates and the volatility that has come with it. Because we are getting to a point now where businesses may be forced to now begin to denominate their price in dollars or write invoices in dollars. Because when the currency begins to become volatile the way it is. I mean, look at what is happening.
And that perhaps may take us back to the issue of dollarization,
exactly,
which the central bank was trying to stop. Exactly. I remember the former central bank governor.
Exactly. Yeah. Because when you have a situation where confidence is being eroded in the stability of the currency, it leads to what you call the dollarization of the economy. I was speaking to somebody over the weekend, and he told me how he has issued about 3 or 4 invoices within 2 weeks to his customer, changing the invoices as the exchange rate was changing. You know, and this is something that will be happening to quite a lot.
Now,
so the volatility thing, I think, is something really.
Looking at the parity now between the exchange rate at the official window and, of course, at the parallel market, I don't know. Do you think that's normal? That's okay? I know that during the time of Governor Soludo tried to breach that gap, so that the difference between the exchange rate at the official rate and, of course, the bureau de change rate wouldn't really be much. But we're beginning to see that gap widening now.
In fact, the premium now, the exchange rate premium between the official market and the interbank and the parallel market is so wide, and I think this is the widest that we have seen in recent history. And normally these things come with all sorts of challenges. In fact, if you are not careful, it could push us to the point of the days of the import license, where you need to lobby, where you need to get to the highest authority to get some notes, to use a lot of influence to be able to get exchange rate in the official, to get a foreign exchange in the official market. Because the temptation and the pressure that this is creating in the official market is a lot. If you have the official market rate at, let's say, 169, 170, if you add the commission that the banks will get, and you have the interbank at 182, 183, there was a time it got to 184, 185. You can see the difference.
Yeah, and then
you have the parallel market.
Exactly. We're talking about 190, 187, yes, 190.
Exactly. So all these things create a lot of room for corruption, for round tripping, and for all sorts of malpractices in the foreign exchange market. So there's a need, because even if we are talking of stabilizing the market, this disparity is something that we need to worry about. Because the temptation to move funds official market to all these other is very high now. And because of the way things are I will not be surprised if even the real sector or the real producers in the economy that actually deserve to get this official foreign exchange are not getting it. That is what this kind of situation will create. Imagine you are able to access maybe, for example, $1 million in the official market, and you're able to cross it over to the interbank market. You are of a difference of close to 8 or 10, naira, if not more. That is 10 million naira in terms of what you gain. It's not a legal thing to do. But again, we should not create temptation for some things to happen. Just as they say in the scriptures.
Now, how do you think the CBN can actually bridge this gap we're seeing?
You see, we need to be create an environment that is more predictable. The reality of exchange rate depreciation, we have accepted that. The reality of devaluation, we have accepted that. But the CBN has to be very transparent in the way it wants to allocate or fund the foreign exchange market, in the way it wants to be intervening in the foreign exchange market, so that you don't have a situation where 181 today, it is 184 tomorrow, it comes to 180 today. It is not for business. It makes planning difficult. It makes costing of your production process and your services difficult. And that is not good for business. You now have a situation where even the challenge of volatility is becoming even a bigger problem than the problem of the depreciation itself, because you cannot plan. So there has to be a model, and I'm sure they have the expertise to work out a model on how the intervention of the CBN could be more transparent and could be more consistent and predictable. Now,
do you think that looking at the foreign exchange market, can we actually do without the Bureau de Change segment?
Well, the Bureau de Change segments...
Because there's been a lot of argument about that. I mean, some people will say, why
it is debatable. Yeah. It is debatable. And the paradox is that the Bureau de Change even though the allocation has been reduced, it has been reduced now to $15,000 per week. It comes to about $60,000 in a month. And the Bureau de Change gets their allocation at the official rate. They get their allocation at the official rate.
So whereas, at the official rate, why do they have to?
Of course, they are business people. The market is there. If you have, you are supposed to, add a margin of, I think, 2% or so over what the allocation you get. If you add the margin, it will give you about 172 or thereabout. And you are in a market where you can sell the dollar for close to 190. I mean, it will take an angel to comply with that kind of policy stipulation that you should just add about 2% or 5% margin. It can't work. And in terms of value added, well, it is difficult to see. Because the irony now is that even the bureau that are accessing forex at the officials, those who are in production are not having the access to the foreign exchange at that rate. So how do we justify that? So this is why I said it is something that is debatable. The original concept of the Bureau de Change allocation was to be able to douse the pressure in the parallel market and narrow the gap somewhat. But that is not happening now.
All right, we'll talk more on that because I think this is becoming quite interesting, considering what some of these banks also do in terms with the Bureau de Change. When you go to we'll talk more about that. Let's just catch our breath. Well, we'll take a quick break, and when we return, we will continue with that conversation, looking at what's happening at the foreign exchange market. Just stay.